Today I'm going to teach you lots of different angle rules that involve parallel lines. For us to understand this, we're going to need to know what parallel lines mean. So parallel lines are two lines that go on and on forever and never meet. They're a bit like train tracks. As you can see by the two black lines I've just drawn by freehand there, those two are parallel lines and they're represented often by having two arrows going in the same direction. And that's going to be super useful for today's lesson. Other things you're going to need to know is how many degrees is on a straight line. So the angle of a half turn like this is 180 degrees. We also need to know how many degrees is a full turn around a point like this, and that's 360 degrees. Another fact is how many degrees all angles in a triangle add up to, and that is 180 degrees. And finally, what all the angles in a quadrilateral add up to, that's 360 degrees. Now I did a video on this yesterday just to remind you, so if you're not sure why all of those things work, just have a look at yesterday's video and that will help you. Now, angle rules, all to do with parallel lines. So there's three main ones that you need to think about. So the first one, if we draw some parallel lines again by freehand like this, and the arrows represent that they are parallel, is if you've got a line intersecting both of those parallel lines, like so, there are lots of different angles there which are equal. Now, the first one I'm going to teach you is the angle here and the angle here. They are equal, represented by that little red line that I've just put through. Now, the way I remember that is that it creates a big F. So if I highlight the F here, the bottom parts are equal, and so are the top part of that line. That blue one is equal with the other blue one, and the red one is equal with the other red one. So I like to call that, because it creates an F, I call it a fangle. But if you want to be technical and use the actual mathematical words, which you will need to know for if you get asked what it's called in a test, they're actually called corresponding angles. So yeah, fangles is just something I remember, but yeah, corresponding angles is the real term. The next one, if we draw another set of parallel lines like this, with our arrows again representing it, again, I'm going to draw a very similar looking thing here. And there's also angles here, this one and this one are equal. Now, for this specific one, it creates a Z, as you can see there. So the way I remember that is I like to call that a zangle. So we've got ourselves a fangle and we've got ourselves a zangle. Now, unfortunately, we can't say it's a zangle in an exam. So instead, we have to use the mathematical term. And in this case, it's alternate angles. And that's one that always comes up in tests. It's always there, and it's always one that they just want you to spot, because it will find you lots of different degrees of angles that look a little bit unclear without knowing that. And the last one is if you've got two straight lines that cross like an X, the angles that are opposite each other are equal. So this red bit is equal with that, and the side angles are equal with each other as well. Now, you're probably noticing there's an X there, so I'm going to call this one a zangle. Again, unfortunately, that's not the mathematical term for it, but it's just a way that I remember it. Now, in the test that you'll see, often they'll ask you to chase various different angles around to try to figure out what different angles are. Now, I'm going to draw a little sort of shape here. Again, I'm going with our parallel lines. I'm going to put a straight line crossing through them, and I'm also going to draw a triangle here. Now, I'm going to put on this triangle these three little black lines. Now, what that means is it means that this line, and this line are equal. They're equal in length, which also means that because they're equal in length, that is an equilateral triangle. So I'll write next to it equilateral. Now, if we go back to our original sort of bit up the top here, when I was talking about triangles, and I put it in green around it here, it shows us that every angle adds up to 180. So for us to know what each of these individual angles is, it's just 180 divided by 3. So each one of these is worth 60 degrees, 60 degrees, and 60 degrees. Now, often you will be asked questions like, please find A here, maybe find the B here, and you might have to find C down here. So let's go back to some of the corresponding angles, alternate angles, and the ones around an X, and try and figure out if there's anything here which we can spot. So first thing I can see is I can see that there's an X here. So you can see where the blue lines are crossing there. Now that shows you that the A is exactly the same as the one opposite it, which is already found out as being 60. So we know that A equals 60 degrees. Now the next thing that I've noticed is that there's a big Z here. So if I draw in yellow this time, a big Z, that tells us that the A and the B are equal. So that makes me realise that if A is 60, then B is also 60 degrees. Now the last thing to notice is looking at this green line here, we've got B and we've got C on a straight line. Now I'm just going to write that B is 60 degrees here, and I'm going to write that A is 60 degrees here as well. So if I was to take the green line that I've just sort of drawn, and I'm going to draw it over here on the right hand side, with B being on this side, so I'll write B on the inside, but we know that's 60 degrees, and C is on this side. Thinking back to right at the top here, where it's 180 degrees as a straight line, we can figure out C, because C is 180 degrees minus 60 degrees, which is 120 degrees. So there are lots of the basic angle rules that involve parallel lines that you will see in various sort of tests, whether it be GCSE, Common Entrance, whatever it is that you see along the way in your school life. If you just remember them, then it makes life a lot easier, because you'll often see a big puzzle. There won't be many angles there, and you're thinking, how on earth am I going to find that? Well, often there's little tricks like these that I've taught you, and also you do need to look out for the little lines on things like an equilateral triangle, which will help you as well. There we go. So feel free to sort of take a screenshot of that if you think that would be a useful revision poster. And good luck. I hope this was really helpful.